Fred, you once said that Whalef Trail was never on your bucket list. Why was that?
What we try and do as the Mindful Runner coaching crew is we try and get as many of our runners to events as possible. And so we pick events that have a lot of different distances at them. And that typically then that's like the 100 milers, because you've got a 100-mile event, you've got a 100K event, you've got a 65 or a 50, and you've got 35s and 20s. So we can get a lot of our runners there. And so those are the runs we tend to focus on, the big events. Smaller events like Whale, they just never really come up for us. And as attractive as they look on the brochure, it was just never really something that I considered doing because we were always so busy with all the other races.
So what made you finally decide to take on this race?
Well, I'd been nagging Graham Bird, the organizer, for a while to let us provide some coaching advice or some coaching input to their program. And Graham's point to me was, well, how can you coach people for my route if you've never actually run it?
Yeah.
So, the opportunity came up, we had the time, and it was just perfect. I went down and ran the route, and now we know what it looks like.
So now that you've done it, did it surprise you?
It did, actually. Very
what
pleasantly.
Specifically?
It was a pleasant surprise. I think we're so used to, when you're running ultra distances, so used to running into the night and through the night and finishing a race. When you're tired, early hours of the morning, it's cold and grim and there's nobody at the finish line and everyone's gone home. That's so often the case when you're running 100K and 100-mile events. This kind of ultra where you're going to be finished somewhere between 6 hours and 12 hours, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
You at least, with a 7 o'clock start, you're going to be finished at 7 in the evening.
Nice timing.
Yeah, at the very latest.
Yeah.
And, most of the field is probably finishing between 9 and 10 hours. And that's lovely because you're in before it's dark. You're not tired in the same way. Let me correct that. You're not exhausted in the same way as you are running off a 100-miler. So you can still, if you're reasonably fit and trained, you can still sit down with people afterwards, have a chat, have a beer, talk about the event in that evening still.
Yeah. Describe what was the vibe and everything like when you first arrived at the Hoop?
I think that's what struck me the most, right? That this definitely feels, and I know that Graham's probably going to hate the word, but it feels like a boutique event in the sense that you're taken care of. From the moment you get there, there are these little touches. Everything works smoothly. Registration is quick. It's easy. During the registration process, you walk into this hall, small hall, but you walk in, and as you get in, there's 2 platters of little whale-shaped cookies because you're standing in a queue. Maybe you want to have a little snack on a whale cookie.
As one does.
Yes. During your registration process, that's very easy. You get a whole bunch of goodies, but on the way out, Nut Butter in this instance, who were one of the sponsors, were there making mocktails. And so I think we had we had a cucumber, lemon, ginger, and coconut water mocktail, which was lovely. And then right after them, once you drained your mocktail, was the wine tasting. I think they're the southernmost vineyard in the country.
Wow.
And their wines were on display and people were able to taste. Of course, it's tasting glasses, so it's not like you can stand there and get hammered the night before a race.
Good.
Yeah. And so it's those little touches around registration which were reflected in everything about the event. It's not just the registration process. At dinner that evening, at the race briefing, it's a very cozy environment, although there's space obviously for 200 and odd people. It's a cozy environment. It was a little chilly, so all the gas heaters were on. The food itself, although I'd hesitate to call it fancy, but it is a 3-course meal. It's wholesome, it's well prepared, nice. It's well plated. So it's a good experience. In the hall, there's a musician up on stage playing music at dinner. Graham Graham's presentation is slick and easy about what's coming the next day, although he provided lots and lots of warnings about it's going to be much tougher than you think it is. So, yeah, just lots of little touches that really impressed me.
And the atmosphere compared to the other big races?
Very laid back and quiet, understated, I think is probably the right phrase.
Interesting.
But again, that caring environment. I stayed in tents, in the glamping tents. So you've got a bed and you've got a mattress and you've got duvet and a table and an overhead light. And then at the tent village, the glamping tent village, is a big marquee, and under that marquee are tables and benches, but regularly fresh coffee is put out for people. There's fresh coffee, there's rusks, there's tea that you can have at any time. And on the morning of the race, in fact, at just after 5, there was fresh coffee available for everybody. And freshly ground coffee, not just fresh coffee. Yeah, it's not powdered coffee. So again, these little touches that just make you feel...
The details matter.
Yeah, the absolute details. Yeah. So many times at an event, organizers will focus, rightly so, but they put all of their focus and all of their effort on start line to finish line. What's that experience like, and what's that experience like for the runner? So they really focus on that. Very rarely do they focus on
everything around
it, the process around it. So I think a lot of even the big events could take a lesson from the book here, and that is those little touches really do make a difference to the people who are participating in your event.
I remember you mentioning slow food moving vibes. How does that change for trail races?
So the comparison to the slow food movement, right? Slow food movement is about careful preparation of food. It's about smelling the flavors. It's about cutting the onions. It's about really just taking it easy and staying present during the process. It's a mindful way of cooking. And it felt like, and this is where the match-up to mindful running and what we do seemed to be there. There was this thought. It was all very deliberate and very present. The entire experience felt present and deliberate.
Okay, so take us now to a race morning. What's now going through your mind? It's 6 a.m. and I think you took a bus.
Yes. So the bus starts at Joubert. It's about a 40-minute drive to the start itself.
Okay.
You are warned very carefully during race briefing. The bus leaves at 6. If you're not on the bus,
fair enough,
you're not going. And so everybody was there. Early morning coffee. Everybody was on the bus. It's a comfortable enough ride. You're in a luxury bus. So some people napped. Some people chatted. It's a quick enough drive to the start line, and you get there maybe half an hour before the start, and the start is timed for sunrise.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And you said Graham Bird warned you about the last 15 kilometers. Did that stick in your mind at all?
It sort of did, but when I said to Graham on the start line, all that said to me was you better rush the first 40 because the last 15 is going to be tough anyway. So let's talk about the first climb up Potberg. What was that like? I think, so off the start, you run a small little lap around the admin block, which is around about 400 meters. It's just enough to separate the field and let the racing snakes get away. So if you're looking to race and go fast, then that's probably a good idea. Like get out to the front. You have enough time because once you get onto the single track, it is tight single track. You're climbing up the mountain. The front guys will be running it. And if you were training, you could probably run it. But in the event for the middle to back of the pack, it's going to be a quick walk. It's not particularly difficult. It's not particularly steep. And then as you start approaching the top, probably 2Ks in, it becomes much gentler and a lot more runnable then. And so then the middle of the field is starting to run more at that point. So, yeah, I would say be patient on that section because there's no point in twisting an ankle in the first 3 kilometers.
Of course.
It's probably the most technical, rocky technical section on the first half of the course. Once you get to the top, then it becomes a lot more runnable, a lot more friendly. And we also saw, I didn't realize that there were Cape vultures there.
Wow.
The southernmost colony of Cape vultures is on the top of Potberg. So as we were coming up, the sun's coming up, and there were these vultures gliding along the thermals alongside us. Absolutely stunning. And that's fynbos running. You know, once you're up there, you're on trail that is mostly runnable, and because you're dropping down this ridgeline, every now and then as you do these little drops, it's a bit technical and rocky, and then it's once again lovely runnable trail. So you've got to be a little cautious on the rocky bits, and then you've got good downhill running for a lot of the run towards the ocean.
I believe you took a fall quite early on.
I did.
How did that affect your race and your mindset?
Yeah, it was quite a brutal fall. I mean, it took a chunk out of my glasses, damaged my hand, so I was like, there was a lot of blood. So it kind of put me off my stride a little bit because it was just starting to flow. The downhill was really working and it was feeling so good, and then I fell. And that obviously then dented my confidence a little bit. So I was a little more cautious then on the downs. I kind of thought, well, you know, this is only 6 Ks in, and you know, I'm falling, and there's another 48 to go. So best I dial it back and just ease back. And so I did. I backed off a little bit, especially on the downs. And then I had another fall a little later on, which was luckily just on open trail and fairly soft landing, but it also made me even more cautious on the downs. So I took it really easy up to the second aid station from the time I fell. Took it really easy up to that second aid station with the intention of then hopefully having gas in the tank, because that's at 24 Ks. Hopefully having gas in the tank to be able to run better on the last 30. That was my plan.
I believe from that second aid station, the terrain also changes.
Yeah. So I wish I'd known that up front.
No to Graham.
Yes. Because when Graham did his race briefing, he very briefly mentioned the tops of the cliff, because it's the beach running that really seems to get to people. And he said, oh, yeah, the cliff top, you'll get through that. The reality is that section, once you turn, you hit the coastline and you do a hairpin turn up towards the Hoop, you're on the top of stunning cliffs. I mean, absolutely stunning. You're running along the edge of the ocean. The waves are crashing against the cliffs. Occasionally, if you look, you can see a whale jumping.
Wow.
There are these massive caves that you can see as you run around these coves. So it's really beautiful, but it's off camber. It is not smooth path. You're running on the rock. And there are these constant drops and climbs as you hit another cove, and it drops and it goes up and drops and goes up. So you can never find a rhythm. And this was my difficulty. I just couldn't get into a running rhythm. As soon as you start to run, you're forced into a walk again, or I was forced into a walk again. There's nothing daunting on that section. It's just very technical underfoot, and so slows you down.
Can't really appreciate the views then either. We're looking where you're running.
Yeah, to appreciate the views, you have to stop.
Yeah.
You literally have to stop and take a look and then go, okay, well, that's the view done.
And then you hit the beach, right?
Yeah. And then I hit the beach, and I tell you what, that cliff section, I couldn't wait for it to be over and to get to the beach.
Relief to get.
Yeah. So this big beach section that Graham had been warning about, I mean, I grew up on the coast, and I spent years running on sea sand. So I had no problem on that sand section, and I could run with confidence because I knew even if I fell there, I'd just be hitting wet sand.
Yes.
So it didn't bother me that much. And we caught the tide probably mid-tide, so it wasn't hard, wasn't super soft though. As long as you ran on the water's edge, it was relatively firm.
Good tip.
Yeah, so it was never soft sand. I noticed a lot of tracks high up on the soft sand, and to me that's much harder going. So yeah, I enjoyed that sand section.
And tell me, you had a theory from Mac about your hip. How did that go during this race?
Yeah, that was also a motivator for going and doing this race, because I wanted a test of my hip. My theory is that it's only a distance before I start, before the niggle becomes a problem. Because it's one thing to say to somebody, you've got an imbalance. And if I never run beyond 10 kilometers, I would never
How would you
know that.
Yeah.
I would never find that imbalance. So like kind of where's the line was my thinking. And I thought, okay, 60 Ks or between 50 and 60 Ks, which is the distance for whale. If I can run that far without a niggle, that proves the point that there's not a significant imbalance. It's significant if I'm running 100 miles and 200 miles, but it's not like a life-threatening or I've got a broken something. There's just an imbalance that needs to be addressed. And so that was part of the test on this run. I mean, I'd come off Mac 2 weeks before, so there was some fatigue in my legs, and I could feel on some of the climbs I had to let the left leg lead instead of the right leg because the right leg was just tired on some of the steps. But at the end of the day, there was no issue at all. You know, I ran for 9.5 hours and there were no problems. So it's allowed me to see that line is further than 60 Ks, maybe further than 12 hours. So anything up to probably 60 Ks, 12 hours would be the next target. You know, can I run that far before I feel a problem?
So what will you change about your training and your race choices going forward?
I think what this race has taught me is that we're not podium runners, right? And many of the runners we coach are not podium runners. Many of our runners are going for the experience and for the joy of running. And a race like this really does. I came away, I had a joyful experience. It was very often when we come back from races, you and I, we come back from races, staying awake in the car on the way home is hard.
It's hard. The struggle is real.
Yeah. You got to get out of the car every 2 hours and walk around just to stay awake because your body's so hammered from where you've been. Yeah, exactly. This, as I said previously, less than 10 hours of running. You are able to, we went to dinner afterwards. The next day I wasn't stiff.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's a great way to feel. And then to have seen, I mean, the beauty of this route is absolutely mind-blowing. It's spectacular. And you have that Fynbos, you have the cliffs alongside the ocean, you have the open beach running, and then the last section just before you get to the finish is a lot of little coves. Just absolutely beautiful. It's mind-blowing how pretty it is. So I would say, let's start promoting more of these kinds of races. Less as a test of how fit and strong you are, and more as a let's go away as a group of runners and have a good time at the sport that we really love. I think that's the mindset shift.
You said you were collecting mental snapshots from the race along the way. What images from this race stay with you for the longest?
Well, I had to make it mental snapshots because I forgot the battery for the GoPro. So.
We heard about that.
So I think coming up Potberg and seeing the vultures floating along, a section running down there before I'd fallen, just absolutely stunning. You could see 2 or 3 runners ahead, this long section of downhill trail, and we were cruising down. It was absolutely beautiful. The section that I didn't like so much along the cliffs was pretty, was really, really pretty. I did see a whale jump, and that's why I tripped there.
It was worth it.
Saw the whale jump and I tripped. Running along the beach and seeing runners ahead of us, because that beach section is maybe 5 kilometers long.
Okay.
And so
was there only one beach section?
Well, we were on the beach in the second half after that section, on and off the beach.
Okay.
This was the one section where there's 5 kilometers of uninterrupted sand running.
Okay.
And then after that, you're back onto a little bit inland, a little bit of rock. So it mixes up. And that section, actually, after the long beach, you're then running probably the best trails of the whole route, because it's just inland when I say just inland, it's like 50 meters from the sand. It's hard-packed trail. It's wide. It's easy to run. It's gently undulating. It really doesn't go up or down much. So it's beautifully runnable. So if you've been clever and you've conserved your energy, that section you can go pretty quickly in.
Okay, and was there any one moment that particularly surprised you or moved you?
No.
All of it?
All of it.
Okay, describe the finish line for us. What was that like?
The finish line is interesting because you're on the beach, you've run through these little coves, and it's the last 3Ks in which you come across, you're kind of running inland on a mountain bike track, and then you push down onto the sand and a little cove and a couple of rocks, and then it's back inland and back down. So about the last 3Ks you're doing that. And then there's a stunning little beach just before a boardwalk of 100 meters that takes you inland to the finish line.
Oh, wow.
And that finish line is absolutely stunning because there's hot showers, proper hot showers.
Oh, wow.
On the finish
I
line
love it.
available for you. Your drop bag is there because you've given your drop bag in that morning, and all of your kit is there.
Yeah.
You're warned at the race briefing. Make sure you've got warm clothes in that bag because there's going to be a bit of a
Love
breeze.
it.
So nice hot shower. You come down back to the race finish area, and there's a dining area there. We had burgers and chips, and even as a vegan, it was one of the best vegetarian patties I've ever had.
Good to know.
Yeah, chips were great. They were fresh, and it was kind of, you got there. It wasn't like you had these pre-packed burgers. They literally, you had your roll cut for you there. You put your dressings on.
A little buffet there.
Yeah, you took your plate to the burger cooking place, and they cooked the burger grill, and they cooked your burger right there in front of you, and put it on. So that was nice and fresh. Again, the nut butter people were there. I had a berry peanut butter, coconut milk, macadamia milk smoothie, along with the hamburger, and then the bar was open, so people were having beers and drinking G&Ts, all the while sitting watching the whales jumping in the ocean. The whales were putting on a full display, so you didn't have to see them while you were running. You could get to the finish line. Yeah, wait till the finish line, sit there and watch the whales jumping and look at the ocean. And you also had you could book a free massage. It was like a 15-minute massage to massage the legs.
Nice.
I think they had about 5 or 6 masseuses there, all busy. So, yeah, finish line vibes, just absolutely incredible as well.
Also first prize.
Yeah.
And then what about your passion about age group category recognition?
Yeah, this has been a bugbear for me for a lot of years, is that a lot of events, especially trail events, because there's small numbers present, they tend to just have open category prizes. They don't recognize the age categories. UTMB is different. Obviously, UTMB recognizes age categories. And, I have always looked to be competitive in my age group. I can't race against the front young guns.
20-year-olds, yeah.
They're 45 years younger than I am. They can go fast. But it is important, and I'm not the only one. I know this. It's important to have a little bit of an incentive out there. For instance, I ran past somebody up a hill, and the immediate call was, "Hey, what age group are you in?" Because we were kind of similar in age. Yes, because we were kind of similar in age.
That's quite nice. Creates a nice vibe as well.
It does. It does, exactly. So I think
camaraderie as well.
Yeah, and I think age group recognition is super important. It's going to keep people incentivized to keep on running and racing because you're recognizing them. You're not just going, you know what, you can pay the money and run, but we don't care about you. Age group recognition shows that the event and the event organizer cares about every person who's racing. And if you look at what's happening around the world, age group racing is certainly at something like triathlon, and now at UTMB events, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Ultra Trail Cape Town.
Yeah. Also recognizing the same kind of group.
Yeah,
groupings.
that's really great. Okay, and then how did it feel to be recognised on the podium in your age category?
Yeah, a little bit amusing because I was the only person in my age category.
Well, there you go.
Well, I was the only male in my age category.
Okay.
But it was still fun. It was still fun. The recognition of the age group was still fun. So yeah, I enjoyed that.
Okay, great stuff. And then post-race reflections. You slept well that night, yeah? Maybe the gin helped?
Yeah, there was, yes, at prize giving, there was a free gin and tonic from Six
Nice.
Dogs Gin. So that was appreciated.
And breakfast the next morning, reflections?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the event. And I would encourage everybody to take some time, go and run the event. Yeah.
You explained it as your heart was full and your spirit was rejuvenated.
Because, that's definitely how it felt. There was the environment, for one, just running on those trails. They're beautiful trails, even though you're not looking up and you're not seeing the scenery while you're running. The nature of the trails is pretty. You can feel the environment around you. And in your peripheral vision, you obviously are seeing the beauty as well. But so the trails themselves are beautiful. The way that you are hosted, because that's how it feels. You are hosted by Graham and his team and the staff at Joubert. They're all doing their very best to make sure that you're having the best experience possible.
That's really nice.
Yeah, and it makes you feel good about being there, feels good about participating. They're not just taking your money and saying, well, there you go, here's a medal.
GP extract, off you go.
Don't want to see you again, yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody was nervous about taking on this race for the first time, what advice would you give them?
Look, I think there's good reason to be nervous about the route because it's not an easy route.
Okay.
I do think you need to prepare. You need to look at finding a place to do some beach running if you can, because there is a different technique to running on the sand as there is to running on the hard stuff. And practice your proprioception, definitely. Get your technical off-road running working well. It's not loose underfoot, but it is off camber, so things like balance and proprioception become super important. Okay. We definitely put an emphasis on balance, proprioception, quick feet, running on technical terrain. Certainly leading up to the race, maybe the last 10 weeks or so. That's where I'd be putting emphasis. Because it's not like there's a lot of elevation. You're not doing massive
You
climbs.
say I can skip the hill training?
Well, you've got Potberg to deal with, and then after Potberg, the others are not particularly difficult. So no, there's no scary climbs in this one, not in any way. And because that first climb of Potberg is right in the beginning, and most people are walking up there anyway, it's that big climb is over. So climbing is less important on this one. What's much more important is your technical running and your ability to run quickly on windy trails. They are, for the most part, you've got nice smooth trail, but it's windy.
Okay.
And then there's these little technical bits you've got to handle, and then
Navigate through.
Cliff section, which I spoke about, that you definitely need good proprioceptor skills there to run that.
Fair enough. And I remember you mentioning that this event aligns with what Mindful Runner stands for. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I think it is exactly what I mentioned earlier, that slow food feeling, that feeling of somebody's paid attention to the detail in this. Somebody's looked at this event and gone, how do we make sure that every base is covered, that people coming to do the event feel as good about doing it as those who are hosting it.
So it's an all-round good experience.
Yeah, because it's clear that the Joubert staff, they love the place. They love where they are and what they're doing. Graham's got a passion for the place. The people who work with him around the event, everybody has a deep passion for the place. And that's what comes through. That's what you get from that's what, let me get this right. That's the feeling that you get from running the race, from participating in the race, is that everybody involved has got a deep passion for it. And for us as Mindful Runner, that's what we want. What we want to do is we want to enter events with heart.
Yes.
We want to enter events that are put on by people who are passionate about the event,
and
not
uplift
people
the community,
and also uplifting the community.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not even an aspect that I've mentioned yet. I'll come back to that, the community upliftment. But the fact is, we have entered other races where you can tell the only reason this person is putting on a trail race is so they can make money.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody begrudges race organizers from making a living.
No, of course not. But you still need to get your money's worth in value.
Exactly. And that's what you come away with from this event, feeling like you got value, you were valued, and it fits hand in glove with how we like to do things, I think.
That sounds amazing. And then where can people find more about your race stories and find out more about your coaching?
Yeah, so obviously on the podcast, we have a podcast, we have a YouTube channel, so look for Mindful Runner on the podcast and Mindful Runner Trails on YouTube. You'll find us on Instagram, on Facebook.
And then what's next for Mindful Runner Trails?
Well, we'll put out a lot more content around events. So that's one thing. This is the first event video we're doing effectively. And what we want to do is we want to have more of these where we are participating in an event and then coming back and telling people what the event was like, and hopefully showing what the event was like. We're also putting up a lot more trail skills, a lot more training. We're just trying to get it, build the knowledge base around trail running as much as we can, because the big barrier to entry to running a race like this is just the unknown, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons that an event like Comrades is so popular in South Africa is because it's so well known.
Yeah.
There are very few unknowns in the event. Whereas when somebody says that Whale of Trails, 57Ks or 54Ks, you kind of go, well, I don't really know about it. So there's no incentive to go and do it. We'd rather do something familiar. And what I'd say is, rather than doing a familiar event every year, rather than going back to the same event every year, if you have a smaller budget, then pick one or two events in the year and see the country and participate in different events. I would say follow race organizers. Look at the race organizers who have good reputations. So
that put on good events?
That put on good events because they are consistently good events.
Fair enough.
Participate in their events. If you go to an event where you feel like the race organizers are really just after your money, then
why would you go back?
Don't go back to that event and don't go back to another of their events.
Yeah. Start. Yeah. Okay, last question. If you were to rate Whale of Trail on a scale of 1 to 10, based on everything, where would you put it?
Sure. It's got to be a 9 because nobody gets a 10, right? I think it's going to be a 9.
So put it in perspective, compared to all the other races, the big races you've done. I mean, you were pretty mind-blown about Ultra Trail Cape Town last year, and I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah, so I think the comparison, if you look at the big events in South Africa, those are, and Whale would compare with that in terms of quality. Maybe it's just because of the size of the events. You do feel like a number at Ultra Trail Cape Town, at George Mutt. You do feel like a number. Perhaps not to the aid station personnel, because they're always
passionate, yes,
always behind you.
Yes.
So there's not that. But that experience, as I said earlier, is pretty much from start line to finish line.
Right.
For those events.
From arriving, not just the start line, but from arriving at the event, checking in, collecting your numbers.
Yeah, but that almost feels like at the bigger events, and don't hate me, Stuart, and the guys at Mutt, you're just a number at registration.
Okay.
You're literally you're just coming through. They're going to check your gear. They're going to check you off and go, thanks for, or just move on because we've got more people to process.
Okay.
It's the same thing at the finish. You cross the finish line, and yes, you will get greeted mostly by the race organisers. At our South African events, that's what happens.
Absolutely.
It's the race organisers
Love it.
themselves are there to greet you. So you cross the finish line, and you're getting your medal put on by one of the race organisers. Usually,
Get a hug, you get a beer.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the end of it. It's like, okay, thanks for coming. Here's your beer. Here's your medal. Pat on the back. Quick, well done. And then you can move on now.
Okay.
And that was what was different with Whale, was there was a warm reception when you got there. You were welcomed, and you felt welcome. And at the finish, there was a lot of just relaxing with your fellow runners, and again, you felt well taken care of. There was a prize giving. Everybody was there. It was just a good experience all around. So I would say to compare them to those events, certainly in terms of trail and terrain and aid stations, they are right up there with any of with UTCT, with
Interesting.
UTMB, for MUT UTMB. They're right up there. And maybe even a little, I wouldn't say better, but the aid station food is prepared by the local Joubert kitchen. And so you have good, fresh food on the tables. You also have 32 GI products, so you've got...
Sticks to race nutrition,
You've got genuine race nutrition. But if you're somebody who likes to eat solid foods, there is properly prepared food on those tables. There's quiches, there's date balls, there's dried fruits, there's candied fruits. There's all sorts of genuine food on those tables as well that is freshly prepared by the people from Joubert. And I think all of our races tend to give back. With this, there's one particular fund that Whale donate to, and that's the local school, local primary school.
Wow.
They're putting in a lot of facilities there. The money being raised is making real significant difference into a community that wouldn't have access to this much additional money going in. So they're making a real contribution, and not just from that donation point of view. The race bags you get, your transition bag, is locally made out of recycled plastics.
Oh, wow.
It's a stunning bag. I mean, it's not...
And I heard they're all individually made. They're all different.
Exactly. All
That's
individually
amazing.
made, all unique. So there's that. The fact that Southern Wines is being promoted and they're a local vineyard. So there's definitely that sense of the local community being deeply involved in the event as well.
Yeah, and then also gaining from it. So, I mean, all these good experiences, would you say it comes from, because it's a boutique event, I'm paying so much more for it that they can afford to put on the luxuries? Or was it just a small enough event to be able to put on more, make you feel more welcome and more special?
I don't think, I would have to check for sure, but I don't think you're paying more for this event compared to any of the other events around the country of the same kind of distance and nature. No, so I don't think that the money even factors into it when you're comparing events.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
There's no intro or outro. I'm just going to go.
Okay, we're all done.
Cool.
Peace out.